To give you an example of how we could do things, I think, far better than we're doing them today, the two greatest killers in the United States and in most of the developed world are heart disease and cancer.
Yeah.
Between these two diseases, they are responsible for almost 53% of all deaths. We have the ability to detect cancer and heart disease at early stages today far better than we're doing, and we can do that inexpensively. But because conventional medicine is still mired down in the old paradigm of waiting for symptoms to occur, we are not catching these diseases early. So with respect to heart disease, there are two tests that I love to see people get. Yet most doctors do not recommend them. And when I give lectures in the public and I ask for a show of hands how many people have had these tests done, typically 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 of the people will raise their hands that they've done these tests. The two tests you could do for heart disease are, number one, what's called a coronary artery calcium score. It's a simple CAT scan test that looks at the coronary arteries and tells you if they have any obstruction in the arteries. If you find that you do, you can take a very aggressive approach so that you don't go on to become a statistic by having a heart attack, which could either leave you with permanent damage or, God forbid, kill you. The second test you could do is called advanced lipid testing. This is where you look not only at the good cholesterol like HDL, the bad cholesterol, the LDL, but you dig deeper. You look at the good HDL, the bad HDL. And these two tests together can be done for about $350. So for a relatively small amount of money, people can practice preventive medicine to detect the number one cause of death in the United States to a far greater degree than we're doing today. If you compare that $300 per person to what it costs for one bypass surgery, which is close to $100,000.
Yeah.
If we could prevent one angioplasty for $50,000, just think of the money we could save. I mean, we're having such a problem paying for health care, which is really sickness care in the United States. If we would be taking a more proactive approach, I think we could be doing a much better job. The same thing applies with the number two cause of death, cancer. We do a great job of screening for only 4 cancers: colon cancer with colonoscopies, breast cancer with mammograms, cervical cancer with pap smears, and prostate cancers with digital rectal exams and PSA tests. But that's only 4 cancers. Yet by doing the screening for these 4 cancers, we're doing a great job, and death rates from those cancers are way down. Problem is there's 250 kinds of cancers. We're only screening for 4. We could do a much better job with ultrasound, with thermography, of screening for these other cancers and try to detect them before they have spread, when they're still in a localized state. Because if you can find cancer when it's stage 1 before it's spread, it's curable 90% of the time. Whereas if you only detect cancer when it's spread or metastasized, it's curable less than 10% of the time. So I really feel that we have the tools today, but we're simply not using them to the degree that we could.
And what age do you recommend? I'm, for example, 34 years old. So should I be going and doing those tests as you recommend, or am I too young, or what age should people go and test themselves at?
That's a very good question. I feel that you could do them at any age, but I feel where it makes the most sense for doing the heart screening, where you get the advanced lipid testing and the coronary artery calcium test, that men should do this test at 45 years of age and women should do this test at 50 years of age. That's when we start, because that's the point at which we really start to find pathology in a significant percentage of people. If you come from a family where there is a strong history of heart disease and strokes, particularly at a young age, then you might push this up, where men would do the screening at, say, 40 years of age and women do it 45. If you come from a family where some of the men have heart attacks in their 20s or 30s, then I think it makes sense to do this screening even in your 20s or 30s. So these are the general rules of thumb that I do. And I would also do the cancer screening beginning around 45 or 50 as well.
I see. So speaking of your family history, what about genetic testing? Should we be also adding a DNA test to see what our genetic predispositions to develop specific diseases are?
I haven't been as enthusiastic more recently with genomics testing as I was over the past few years, but there are some excellent genomics tests that can give us a lot of information. For instance, two genes that I think it's very important to know about are the Alzheimer's gene, known as the ApoE gene, and the BRCA gene, BRCA, the breast cancer gene. Because if we find out that we're genetically predisposed to Alzheimer's disease, whether we have a family history or not, we can begin taking steps early in life to take the best care of our brains possible, to take care of our memories, so that we don't have the minimum chance of developing Alzheimer's later on. And similarly, if a woman does the BRCA gene testing, finds out she has one of the genes that dramatically increases her chances of having breast cancer. If a woman is positive for the BRCA1 gene, it's not a matter of if she's going to get breast cancer, it's a matter of when she's going to get breast cancer. So she really needs to take steps to protect her health, to have her daughters tested so that that doesn't go on to be the case. So I believe that particularly in younger people, genomics testing does make a lot of sense and it has a lot of value. And the good news is the price of genomics testing is coming down. Right now we have what's called SNP testing, where they check these single nucleotide polymorphisms. What is even better than this is whole genome sequences, where we can actually look at the entire 25,000 genes in the human body. This testing cost $300,000 as recently as 2007, yet it has fallen 1 year later in 2008 to $99,000, to $20,000 in 2009, to $5,000 today. And I think within 2 or 3 years will be perhaps $100 to $500, a price that we can all have our genome tested and we'll have all this information available to us. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait a few years for the scientists to make sense of all this data, but we will have the raw data available to us very inexpensively in the near future. And I think that's going to help us dramatically to make personalized lifestyle choices.
So I presume for people under 40, the DNA test would be the better starting point then, eventually, when it becomes, say, under $1,000 per test or something.
Absolutely. Affordable. Absolutely. I think that the gene testing for people under 40 make a lot of sense to do, because then you know what diseases you're predisposed to, so you know in what direction you want to look and in what direction you want to be most careful with your lifestyle choices.
Well, let's take, for example, me. I know that, I haven't done any testing yet, but I know that from the history of my family, I may be likely or at a higher risk than normal to develop both cardiovascular disease and diabetes, because both my father, my grandfather, and my grandmother had all of those. What do I do? I'm 34 years old, I'm very active, I'm a cyclist, I'm not overweight, and yet what else can I do than the traditional things with proper nutrition and proper active, healthy lifestyle? What can I add to that?
Yeah, well, for avoidance of diabetes in particular, I think the best thing you can do are the things you're doing. Keeping your weight down, getting plenty of exercise, and avoiding high glycemic index foods, the sugary foods, the high starchy foods, things like that, because these put a strain on your pancreas, the cells that make the insulin, which eventually will wear out and lead to diabetes. So since you have a family history of those, that is the type of diet that you want to follow. In terms
so no pasta, I guess. No pasta.
I would be pretty cautious with pasta. Pasta would be something that you would do as a treat, maybe once every month or two. But it wouldn't be something that you want to have once a week or twice a week, because it puts a huge strain on the insulin secreting cells. Things like white potatoes also, things like white bread and bagels. These put a big strain on the insulin secreting cells. So I would avoid these and replace them with the whole grains, more vegetables, some fruits and protein sources. And those would be the best dietary sources for somebody like yourself. In terms of avoidance of heart disease, which also runs in your family, I think even at your age of 34, maybe you don't need to do the advanced lipid testing, but the basic lipid testing makes sense. Check your cholesterol, check your triglycerides, check your HDL, check your LDL, and make sure they're in the perfect range. And if they're not, then you need to be more aggressive with your diet. And if being more aggressive with your diet doesn't bring it down, you could either consider taking a statin drug or consider taking some supplements like red yeast rice, niacin, and plant sterols, which are very nice for lowering cholesterol without having the side effects of the statin drug. So there's many things you can do, even at your age, to reduce your chances of diabetes and heart disease to an absolute minimum.
And what about on the active lifestyle? I mean, let's take you, for example. You seem to be incredibly fit and very energetic and youthful. And I'm very impressed. I mean, if I want to follow an example, I definitely want to find out your secrets. What do you do for healthy, active lifestyle?
Well, I try to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So
Yeah.
I try to follow the type of diet we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get good exercise. I try to control my stress. I try to be socially connected. So I have many friends. I'm close to my family. I try to be connected on many levels, have many interests, use my brain. I think all aspects of life are important, both the intellectual, the physical, as well as the spiritual, because we have found that being isolated has health risks equal to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So it is very important that we develop strong friendships, that we have love in our life. These things are all important. And I often look at the fact that I am now 63 years of age, and I compare my health now to my health when I was 33 years of age. And 30 years later, I am stronger than I was. I am in many ways healthier than I was. I believe in a lot of ways I am wiser than I was. My memory is as good as it was. I am happier than I was. And I like to tell people that if I knew it was going to be this much fun to get older, that I would have been older first.
That's fantastic.
And many of my friends tell me the same thing. They say that they're calmer, that they're happier. So I think as long as you maintain your health, getting older is not a tragedy, because there's a big difference between getting older and aging. All of us must get older. Every second, every day we're getting older. But by definition, aging is a harmful process. So what my goal for myself is, and what my goal for you and my patients is to grow older without aging.
So would you mind me asking, what is your biological age then?
Yeah, my biological age, the last I checked, which was 3 years ago, was 42. So I was 61.
Years.
I was 61. My biological age was 42. So I was 19 years younger than my chronological age. And I have many patients that are even younger than I am from their biological age. I have some patients that are 25 and 26 years younger than their chronological age. So this is entirely doable.